All right, welcome back to Vintage Pop. I'm your host, Greg May. We're here with Rich at 1984 in Wilmington. As we said, a great place, and we're going to get into our first movie, Friday the 13th, Part 3, in 3D, as they tell you multiple times in the trailer.
They make sure to remind you of it.
It is 1982?
82.
Yeah.
You know, I existed at this time. I don't remember it when I was 6. I think I might have seen it by the time I was 9 or 10.
Probably hit cable by then.
I saw it on regular TV. There was USA Network.
Yeah.
Used to have on Friday nights, they would have a thing called Friday Nightmares. And they'd play a horror movie, and they would follow it up with Alfred Hitchcock Presents, the 80s version, or something like. You ever watch?
There was an 80s version of Alfred Hitchcock Presents?
Yes, in the mid-80s, they brought back it was Alfred Hitchcock Presents. It was half hour. They did some versions of the old shows.
Ugh.
It was actually good.
Really?
Yeah.
He was dead.
They used video of him from the old show and put him in new segments and stuff. So it was like using.
That's interesting, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm sure they had tons of recycled stuff left over.
Some of them, like, did you ever see the old episode where the woman tries to get out of prison? Where no, I don't want to ruin it, but they redid that one. Man from Rio's the one that Four Rooms did the riff on, where the guy bets his finger. They can light the lighter so many times.
Well, didn't
they do that with John Huston?
And they did that in Tales from the Crypt, too. Well,
Sure.
It was like a gambling guy, and they were playing, like, blackjack. It started with money, then they were like...
Yeah. Man from Rio. It's a story by Roald Dahl, actually.
Really?
Yeah, the Willy Wonka guy wrote Willy Wonka.
He got a little dark, I guess.
He wrote some adult short fiction.
Really?
Yeah, it's really good stuff. A lot of it, some of it ended up on Hitchcock, on the old show.
I wonder if Serling ever did any Hitchcock scripts.
I don't think they crossed over.
No.
I don't think so. But I'm certainly not sure.
And I know Bradbury was more of a Twilight Zone guy. I don't think he did any
Alfred
they
had
Hitchcock
their own thing.
Presents.
And he didn't get a show till in the 80s.
What, Bradbury?
Yeah, Ray Bradbury Theater.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Drew Barrymore's on an episode.
Huh. Did you ever see, like, we're talking about the Friday the 13th anthology series?
Yeah, I watched it. I remember that was on, like, Fox or whatever network put Fox on. It would run during the day, weirdly.
Sci-Fi used to play it a lot when I was growing up.
Yeah, the reruns. Yeah, but I remember watching it. It was okay. I mean, there's no Jason in it.
See, that's the thing. Like that and Freddy's Nightmare. Well, Freddy's Nightmares, you had Freddy like
Freddy hosted it.
Yeah, and he was
that
like,
was a little
bookending
better
stuff. But,
yeah.
Friday the 13th, the series was something. When I saw it on Sci-Fi, I was like, I think I was probably no more than 8 or 9 when I was watching those, and I was just like, "Where's Jason?" the entire time, and it takes. All of these anthology shows, they have the same like Tales from the Crypt formula. They take you either through like a house, or Friday the 13th, the series took you through like a curio shop or some.
Yeah,
crap.
well, it was different items in the shop.
Yeah.
that each episode would be about, and you'd have to be trying to get it, or it'd be like a cursed teapot or something like that. And
yeah.
I think it came out, I want to say like 88, 89. I was like 13. And I was definitely a Friday fan at that point. I'd seen Part 7 in the theater. And I watched the series, and it was, it wasn't great, but, we had less channels then, so. But yeah, so I had seen Part 3 on that Saturday Nightmares thing, 1, 2, and 3. And how old were you when you saw Part 3?
So I was probably, I don't know. I feel like I caught it on television. So I probably was more like 12 or 13 because Spike was actually on TV at that point.
I remember when they ran them on Spike.
Do you remember the Friday the 13th marathons where they would have like little like bumpers where it was like Jason like on like a track like warming up? And so
I remember specifically in 2007 because the girl I was dating at the time. I remember watching it over her house. But I'm sure it was before and after that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about right. I said I would have been 15 in 2006 or 2016, 2007. And so I probably saw it a couple years prior. But
I actually remember specifically watching 3 on there once, and I was surprised that the only kill that they cut was the girl in the hammock. Everything else was pretty much intact.
Even the harpoon gun.
Yeah, and that's the
my
one,
favorite kill.
That's the best kill in the movie.
Yeah. Well, that's the greatest part of the trailer where they're like, there's something was like, this time Jason comes to you, and that's when they fire the.
Right.
We'll get into it though. So yeah, like I said, 1982. Do you want to do like a plot kind of summary of?
Sure.
All right.
So for this one, all right. It's going to sound like I don't like this one,
Okay.
right? I do like it. It's just I like it the least out of the ones in the series I like. Like among the first 6, I would put it last.
Really?
Yes. I would put it ahead of I really just like 7, 8, and I'd probably put it ahead of a 10, which I kind of like. And that might be the one I like the least out of the ones I like. 7 and 8 are dead to me.
7's okay.
7 is good.
Telekinetic battle.
I should have loved 7. 7's the first one I saw in the theater. 7's the first horror movie I saw in the theater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would have been 12. I remember it was Memorial Day weekend, Christiana Mall. Me and my friend Chris Matea went to see, Friday 7, and I was all psyched for it. And it was just, it's worst characters in the series. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent on that.
Tina's pretty okay.
So 3, so at that point, 3's directed by the same guy who directed 2, Steve Miner,
yeah.
who's the only one I believe. Yeah,
He was a producer on Friday 1.
Yeah, he was involved in 1. He's the only director to direct more than 1. So it's kind of interesting to compare 2 and 3 because they are a little different, but they're a lot the same. So at that point, I think they'd gotten kind of stuck in a rut with characters. I think too much emphasis goes into the 3D. Which is funny because if you watch it on video or DVD, those effects don't work.
Well, that's a note that I even made like immediately. So the movie starts as you see a recap of kind of like maybe the last 4 or 5 minutes of part 2. Yeah, and then you after that when you go through that killer disco score.
Let's take a minute and give respect. It's the best main score in the series only because it's ridiculous and it's disco and you can dance to it. And there's some variation in the series. 7 and 8, I think, use different scores, but 3 is such a curveball. And you said you're going to play it, right?
Oh yeah, it'll be ramping up to when we started talking about this. But you can actually get they sold like 45s of it. You can buy
you can buy those. Yeah,
that'd be cool to have. So I don't know. I see this one's I think this is the best popcorn movie, Jason.
This is your favorite.
I would say out of this is my favorite.
Do you remember what order you saw this in? Like, did you see this early?
I may have seen this first.
So that may have.
I remember I had a Talkboy, and I recorded.
It's a Talkboy.
Talkboy is the toy that Macaulay Culkin has in Home Alone 2. Where like he records it, he's like credit card, no problem, and
So
slows
it's
it
like
down to sound like a man.
Oh, it's like a cassette recorder you can.
Yeah, so
manipulate?
a Talkboy basically was there was a strap on it that you could like put on your hand.
Okay.
And then it was basically a Walkman with like where your thumb would be. Like that, like as you were holding it, that was a microphone that came out of the Talkboy.
Okay.
So you could speed it up, you could slow it down, and when the movies were on TV, I would record audio of stuff from the
so you
movie,
take
like the
little
score
bits.
and stuff, like little
Okay.
bits of it and stuff, and try and slow it down and speed
So
it
you
up.
did that with part 3.
So I jerked around with part 3 like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you saw it first. So I think
pretty
I saw it
sure I
third.
saw it first.
Like my favorites, my top 3 is part 1, which people say they don't like the most, and I know it's slow, but man, that's like an old friend. That's a comfort movie for me.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies that they didn't know what they had yet.
No, but it's interesting. I don't know. I could go off.
You go
way
ahead.
off on I mean, I just think it's naturalistic almost.
Yeah.
It's more of a 70s movie than an 80s movie, even though it came out in 1980.
Well,
and it was
principal
record-
photography was probably 79.
I love the characters. I don't know. I always compare it to Halloween. Halloween, obviously a better movie, a better class of movie.
Right.
But I enjoy watching Friday the 13th, and this goes for the whole series. But I enjoy watching the first Friday the 13th more than the first Halloween.
I don't know if I'd agree with that.
I
mean, obviously we're two different. It's like I agree to disagree, but I think there are things like it's a more of a realistic plot. Friday the 13th, the first movie. I mean, because you can obviously like you know what, the movie came out in 1980. If you haven't seen it, Mrs. Voorhees is the killer. I mean,
if you haven't seen Scream.
It's 2018. I mean, the movie came out 38 years ago.
I did get a treat. Actually, the girlfriend I mentioned earlier that I saw part 3 with, we had watched a bunch of them together. I watched the first one. She was a bit younger than me, and she's like, "Oh, these movies are dumb." I'm like, "No, you'll be scared by part 1." And we're watching it, and there's a scene where you don't know who the killer is yet, and you just see legs. She goes, "Oh, wow, he sure is da-da-da." And I went, "He?" I'm like, I thought she knew Pamela Voorhees was the killer because she'd seen Scream, but she'd forgotten. So I had the joy of watching somebody who'd never seen Friday the 13th see the twist, and she was like, wow, and her eyes bugged out her head. So it was really neat.
But yeah, and at that point, that the movie is very effective at that point. I mean, and it's a logical slasher reason. It's just not like some dumb like Mongoloid or in the case like, I mean, I guess to an extent, if like even Halloween, if Halloween would have ended at Halloween 1, Michael was dead.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just saying, like, if Michael, like, if they didn't show that scene where he was gone,
okay,
Michael, like Loomis shot him to death, it's over. So, like, you don't have that superhuman element to it, or like a force of evil,
no supernatural.
Yeah, exactly. It was just a maniac who, you know,
dude who liked to kill people,
killed his sister, broke out.
Well, Halloween 1, we don't even know the sister thing. So if you kept it at Halloween, there's no sister.
No, he killed the sister in
he killed his sister. I think
that's why he got locked away.
I thought you were referring to Jamie Lee. I'm sorry.
No. Oh, spoiler alert, Halloween 2. But apparently this remake, they're throwing that in the trash, apparently.
Yeah, everything after 1 is moot.
Which, I don't know. I think Halloween 2 is sometimes, I mean, and we're going off topic, but it's whatever. Halloween 2, I think, is the go-to Halloween movie for me most of the time if I'm going to pick between 2 and 1.
Probably because you've seen 1 so much.
Yeah, and I just like, I don't know, I like 2. There's like that scene when he just walks through like a plate glass door, like, and it's nothing, and you know, when when Loomis shoots him down, and then the cops like checking him for vitals, and like he just gets up and like slits the dude's throat.
2's more of a traditional slasher movie.
And I think those are like, and like how you said traditional slasher movie, I think more of those like tropes happen in 3 in spades, I think.
In Friday 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, well, all right. So a couple things about Friday 3 that I wrote notes on. So it has a lot of firsts for a Friday 13th. So there's the 3D thing, and it's the only one that does the 3D. So I think a lot of attention went to that. So it's also where the hockey mask gets introduced.
Right.
So that's a big trivia question for people.
We can thank Shelley for that.
Yes, Shelley for that. And so the hockey mask, which is very iconic. In part 2, he had the sack, which is kind of neat. Looks like Town had tried to sundown. Everyone
a little bit,
yeah.
I
think someone admitted that was an influence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. I
refer to him as the tater sack, Jason.
Sure, yeah. I mean, some people call him the hillbilly.
It could be a pillowcase.
What cracks me up is part 2, 3, and 4 are supposed to be take place days apart. And Jason in 2 and Jason in 3 are very different body types. Because 2's a little... Steve Dash, who played him in 2, is a little shorter and maybe a little stockier. And then, like, Richard Brooker, I think it is, who did part 3.
Yeah.
He was an acrobat. And you can tell he's got the longer limbs, and he's
a little more agile.
Mm-hmm.
Really, though, it's days apart?
Yes. Part 2, if you... so I also read...
I thought 2, they stay specific. I just saw 2 on Friday.
Okay.
And I think that 2, they say 5 years has passed.
Yes. Part 2 is 5 years after part 1, which puts it at 84, because part 1 is supposed to be in 79.
Yeah.
If you see in part 4, which I watched the other day, there's a tombstone for Pamela Voorhees, and it says 79.
Okay.
So part 1 takes place in 79. 5 years later, part 2 takes place. But if you listen to part 3 in the beginning, you know when the woman in the shop is watching the broadcast?
Right.
They're talking about the day before. They just found all the bodies from part 2.
That's right, because the girl, Chris, her lake house is the lake. Isn't it like across from Camp Crystal Lake?
They're not. I don't know if they're that specific, but it's.
Though I do think that that what's its name? In the 4th, the Corey Feldman house, that's across from Crystal Lake, I think.
I think they're all in Crystal Lake.
Yeah, but they're all like one's Camp Crystal Lake, 2's like Packanack Lodge,
okay,
and 3 is her
2's
house.
a different campsite.
Yeah, and 3 is like a home.
Yeah. 3 is Higgins Haven.
Yes,
is what it's called, and
I think because I heard Chris Higgins. Yeah.
So I know more of this stuff because for the audience, I read that. So there's 2 novelizations of Part 3. I love movie novelizations. So these are books. They still do it today, not as much, but it was really big in the 70s and 80s, where it's books that are written based on the screenplays of movies. So it's basically someone sat there with a screenplay and wrote it down. They're popular among fans because sometimes they have scenes that aren't in the movie, they're removed from the movie, and things like that, or you get more information about characters. So I collect these to begin with because they're trashy, and I think they crack me up. And I have the Friday the 13th. a couple authors have done them, but 2 authors did 3. So 1 came out at the time, 3 came out in 82 by an author, Michael Avallone. So there's that one. And then another guy did a novelization in 87 of part 3 because he had done part 6, and I guess it sold well. His name's Simon Hawke. And so then he did part 1, 2, and 3. So there's 2 novelizations of it. So 3 is based on the screenplay as the movie was done. So the version Simon Hawke did, but the version that the other guy did, Michael Avallone, is based on the screenplay before it was filmed. So it doesn't even mention the hockey mask, and there's weird differences. So I've got the clarity on the time frames and stuff because it's very explicit.
Now you were
that.
saying too that Jason in the book has like some type of like internal thoughts.
Yes, yeah. So in the Simon Hawke version, they have a chapter where it's Jason's like inner monologue, and it kind of tells you how he got from the camp in part 2 to Higgins Haven, which was he knew the cops were coming after him, so he doubled back and went to Camp Crystal Lake and ended up near Higgins Haven. Saw all these teenagers. Not really explained in the movie, but a little explained in the book.
Yeah, so I wonder if like at that point at 3, like I don't know, like maybe he wasn't supernatural yet.
People argue that back and forth. I would say the last kill is kind of supernatural. I don't want to necessarily spoil that too much, but
Okay, yeah.
you know I'm talking. The one that looks especially bad in 3D. So
It's like the whole like I mean
he crushes a guy's head with his bare hands, and the eyeball pops out, and the 3D looks so bad.
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
laughable. But when I saw it in the 3D version, so did I mention that already? I saw.
You didn't go into it, but you
didn't
said
go
you
into
did.
it. Yeah, so they did the way they did the 3D. They had the new kind of glasses, so it wasn't the old red and blue.
Oh, it wasn't anaglyph?
No, someone made some kind of glasses. I forget what kind. So it looked good. I don't think the experience wasn't fantastic because I'd already seen the movie so many times. Like it wasn't as cool as seeing it in '82 and not having seen it before. But it all looked good, and that eyeball effect looks good, but it's fast. But if you see it on the home video version, it looks painfully fake. But that's something he does that's supernatural. He crushes a guy's head in part 4, so I would say he was supernatural all along. But part 6 is when they make him more of a zombie Jason.
Well, yeah, because he gets struck by lightning or whatever.
Yeah, and he seems to have super strength, and that was written out. He rips off limbs and things like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have another group of counselors. Well, no, they're not counselors.
No,
they're not counselors. They're just friends of that girl, Chris.
Yep, friends on vacation.
Yeah, Shelley, who is the practical jokester of them.
He's like Ralph in part 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Ralph was a joker, remember?
Ralph wasn't messing around.
A big problem I have with 3 is the characters. I think it's the blandest characters in the series.
Really?
Yeah. Here's the one that bothers me the most, almost. Chili and Chuck, the stoners.
Yeah, the Tommy Chong.
So obviously they're a rip on Cheech and Chong. And I never noticed this before, but pay attention to their names. Chili and Chuck. Their CH is like Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the screenwriter winking at the audience or flipping the bird at the audience, but
It could be. It could be a mix of the two.
yeah, it probably is a mix of the two. If this is what you want. So I think the character's just so bland. The main girl, Chris. So I think some of these actresses at this time, it seems more so the actresses, were classically trained actors.
Like method actors.
Yes, and you get a little more of like stage acting in these movies, I think. Jenny less so, which I think why Jenny in part 2 is one of the best heroines. But her, Alice a little bit, they seem a little trying to hit their mark. You know what I mean?
Well, I did. I made a note that Chris was going for the Oscar when she was making her speech about like how she knew about Jason. I mean, she didn't know who he was.
Sure.
And I don't think they really establish that they know?
No, this is the only Friday the 13th where no one says Jason's name.
Because I don't think they even know who he is.
No one does. And yeah, they have a whole thing where Chris had been attacked by him before, and there's it contradicts itself because she mentions it was 2 years ago in the movie, and Rick mentions she was there the summer before. And in one of the novelizations, it says it was a year before. But there's a scene where she talks about getting attacked by somebody, and it's Jason.
Yeah.
Because you can tell because they show you that she doesn't know that.
But you see him.
You see him in the flashback.
Yeah.
That's a scene that people have argued for years. They're like, oh, did Jason rape her? Like,
I don't. Well, doesn't she black out?
She blacks out, and people
Yeah.
are like, well, what happened there?
Yeah.
Which-
Why didn't he kill her?
That too, because
Yeah.
he usually doesn't show mercy.
Yeah.
But they don't do anything with it besides she recognizes him.
Yeah,
for a
or like it
second
maybe
towards the
could
end.
even have been a nightmare. I mean, but did she have
That
a
doesn't make
premonition? Like I don't
sense.
know. there's massive plot holes with that.
I'll get to the one at the end later, but yeah.
So yeah, I mean, your traditional, slasher fare. They set up the characters, and
I will say one thing. I'll give 3 credit for. It's the first Friday the 13th to have ethnic characters.
the bikers.
The 2 of the bikers are black.
Yeah.
Right? They've never had black characters at speaking parts. I think there's a black guy in part
2.
1 in the diner.
In 2, one of the counselors in part 2.
But he doesn't have a speaking part.
He goes to the casino or whatever.
But he's
them.
always in the background scene. He doesn't.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying, so the 2 bikers in 3 have speaking parts, and actually in one of the novelizations they have all 3 of them be black.
Okay.
Well, I mean, whatever. And Vera, because Vera's Latina.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the first time in the series, and all the main characters have been as white as the day is long.
That was what Shelley was trying to.
Oh yeah, the girl Shelley was trying to get with.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Poor Shelley.
Shelley is the. I always crack up. So at Monster Mania or at horror conventions, they always have Friday the 13th people.
Yeah.
And Larry Zerner
Yeah.
is the name of the guy who does Shelley. And he seems to be at every convention. And he's sitting there looking so eager. He looks like he would pay you to let him write him an autograph. He looks so...
He's like a lawyer, I think.
Yes. Yeah, he has like a permanent job. He just seems so happy to be there, but he just wants to talk to people. And I bet you, like, how many times can you get Larry Zerner's... I'm not into autograph thing anyway.
I don't either. I mean, I know, like, we were, and we'll talk about it later. I mean, Monster Mania.
Sure.
I had a bad experience with it with Kevin and James a couple
you guys not
because
being
we
able
couldn't
to
even
get
get in.
in.
They were, and I'm sure anybody that listens to this who's involved with any type of horror movies or knows the horror community or anything like that, that was a big deal a couple months ago. They basically oversold the convention, and they said there would be tickets at the door. You get to the door, you couldn't get in. Long story short, eventually the fire marshal was called, I think, because they broke code. There was too many people in the building, and they had to actually let some people out. And that was like really, really bad news for them. And they got a lot of hate on social media for that.
I remember reading that. I wasn't even planning on going to that one, but
No, I know Kevin wanted to go because Elvira was going to be there.
Okay.
But I mean, John Milius is going to be at this upcoming one in August, and
Yeah, we should go.
That's why I want to go, because like if he's going to do it, he's got to do a Q&A.
Sure.
And I mean, I didn't even realize this today because we've been talking about future shows, and like I've been doing like Dirty Harry movies. Him and Michael Cimino wrote the screenplay to Magnum Force.
Yeah, I think I did know that.
I didn't know that
I didn't know
until today.
Cimino did, but I think I knew Milius did.
But yeah, so the bikers are introduced. They're going to a vacation home, and it's just Jason just happens to be Moses.
Jason crashes the party and messes things up, and Jason, I think, again, Richard Brooker. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
I think he's one of the best Jasons. My favorite Jason is Ted White in the final chapter. He's just brutal, and he sells the part. I think Kane Hodder gets a lot of love. He did parts 7 through 10.
He did the worst Jason movies.
He really did do the worst
And he
Jason
has
movies.
so much love. And there was,
You know why? Because he's a fan himself, and he really does. He sells himself very well.
Yeah.
And to the community. So I won't begrudge him that. I do not think he's the best Jason.
No.
I think he over personifies him. The
Yeah.
whole thing. I'm gonna breathe like this. Like, all right, man, just kill people.
yeah, like I get it. You're a big dude.
But Richard,
like,
I'll tell you what. I this time watch. So I watched it this week, and I've seen Friday 3. I don't know, at least a dozen times. And what I really noticed was, I really like the way Brooker as Jason. He's in early scenes. He's in the back of scenes, and you don't necessarily notice him. The one I don't think I ever noticed before is when Fox, the biker girl, goes into the barn. So the 2 main buildings at Higgins Haven is the house and the barn. A lot of action happens in the barn. And when she first goes into the barn, Jason jumps down in the background. You can miss it. And there's a lot of stuff like that with Jason kind of peering out in the daylight, which you don't see in any other Friday the 13th.
no, you don't see Jason in daylight ever.
No. And you don't see him like this.
Maybe in the remake, I think he comes out in daylight.
Yeah,
kind of.
and you know what? He's probably closest to the Jason in the remake, where he's a little more sly. Like he sets traps.
Yeah.
Like he messed with the electricity, so he gets someone to come down there and he kills someone when they go to the electrical box. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
He's a little bit more of a cunning Jason.
Yeah, instead of just like busting through a door.
Yeah, and I think he's one of the best ones for that.
I like when he catches the knife and hurls it back at Dana Kimmel towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, I think it's one of the least best final girl battles.
Yeah.
It gets a little old. It kind of feels like it's run through the
I mean, they all
cliches.
kind of like get to a point.
But I watched. All right, so this week I also watched parts 4 and 5, which are my two favorite sequels, and I really like the final girl battle and final chapter. Final chapter, I think, is objectively the best sequel. Part 5 is my favorite. But
4 is probably the best sequel.
Yeah, final chapter 4. It just does everything right. And the final girl battle is a little more visceral. This one I think gets a little lame, and I hate the ending. So a lot of these movies have kind of like a boo ending.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spoil a bit of the ending. First off, they show too much Jason without the mask, which you really can't. They overdo it.
Yes.
But she has a dream sequence in the end where Mrs. Voorhees, with her head attached, because she got decapitated in part 1, jumps out of the lake like Jason at the end of part 1. And it's like, how in the hell would she dream that? She wouldn't know.
She wouldn't know who Mrs. Voorhees is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So here you're right. I guess that's the plot hole you were talking about.
That's the one huge one. You know the original ending? Do you know what the original ending is? It's in one of the novelizations. She goes up to the door. They don't have Mrs. Voorhees pop out, but she's dreaming of Jason, and she goes up to the door, and he decapitates her. So he cuts her head off.
Okay.
And she also cuts his head off at the end, as opposed to how he gets dispatched in the movie. Which is just ridiculous. But yeah, so the original ending was pretty bad too. And the one novelization, the earlier one, that one by Michael Avallone, has this whole weird thing where she dreams of Jason decapitating her, and she's in like the cops don't believe anything happened, and they didn't find any bodies, and they think she's just crazy. It's weird. It doesn't go anywhere. I'm kind of glad that's not what they used.
Yeah, that would probably be really bad.
Yeah, I don't think it would have made sense, and I think they realized that.
So, I think it's a fun sequel.
It's definitely not a bad movie. I would never recommend someone not watch it.
I think it's essential.
Yeah, it is in the mythology,
it's
especially with the hockey mask.
First hockey mask movie.
And the best kill in the movie, which you mentioned, is the first one with the hockey mask.
Well, with the harpoon gun.
Yeah.
I also like when during the final battle when Chris is screaming for Rick and Jason just hurls his body through like the window.
Oh, an interesting thing about that in the original screenplay and in the earlier novelization, Rick's name is Derek.
I think we talked about this. Yeah.
Yeah, and they changed his name to Rick for when she's yelling for him at the end because it's better than one syllable.
Yeah. All right, so Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. If you can catch it in 3D somewhere, that'd be cool. Probably won't be able to, though, because it only comes up every once in a while at like
really
a festival.
Not that often.
But you said it's a different 3D process?
The one I saw at Exhumed.
Was it a digital print that you might have seen?
No, I think it was an actual.
Oh, so it was actually
a 35 millimeter, but the glasses were something one of the guys at Exhumed actually made.
Oh, okay.
But I think what you normally have to do, you need to see it like the old school way. It was on a literal silver screen.
Yeah,
because it reflects or something. I don't know the science super well,
Mm-hmm.
but like the Colonial, like where we went last night, I think they've played it there before, and they probably have the.
I'd love
actually,
to see
that's probably what they used for what we saw yesterday.
Exactly, because I think the gags would land a little better at that point.
It looks great.
Yeah,
it really does. I mean, the real 3D does look good.
Like I feel like that would be and that's probably what they were going for at the time.
It is, and I think that I think they were emphasizing that more in the writing, and I think it took away from maybe better characterizations. I think the kills overall are a little weak in this one. If Part 4 gets back on track with all that.
All right, so as always, I'll leave a link where you can check it out. I know it's definitely on Amazon Prime. I don't know whether it's free or not, but I know.
I think it's on
1 and 2 are on there right now. I think
for free
if you're a Prime member, I believe.
Okay. I own them all, so I've never tried to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I have
there.
the DVD in my backpack, but yeah.
I believe they're on demand if you have cable.
A
couple of the Fridays are. I'm not sure.
For free or you got to pay.
Well, if you have cable.
Okay. All right, so yeah, we'll take another break. We'll come back. We'll talk about Psycho 3, which I'm actually excited to talk about because I took a lot more notes this morning when I watched it.
Cool.
And we'll be right back on Vintage Pop.